When Jorge Bergoglio became Pope, the name he chose was the first thing Perry wrote to me about. Every Jesuit Pope would have been expected to honor Ignatius Loyola, the founder of the order, in the name they chose. Loyola's Jesuits centered their entire mission on Jesus, on the IHS monogram, on the devotion to Christ as the defining orientation of their spiritual and institutional life. A Jesuit becoming Pope and choosing the name Ignatius would have been a declaration of continuity, of institutional identity, of the order finally arriving at the throne it had been pointed towards for 5 centuries. Francis chose differently. He named himself after Francis of Assisi, a saint who was not a Jesuit, who was not associated with the intellectual rigor or the institutional ambition of the Society of Jesus, but who was known above all for one thing: his absolute, tender, unconditional devotion to Mother Mary. Where Loyola's Jesuits were oriented towards the Son, Francis of Assisi was oriented towards the Mother. And a Jesuit Pope choosing that name on the first day of his papacy was sending a signal that anyone familiar with the inner order's secret would have understood immediately. Harry understood it. The email arrived the morning after the election because he had been waiting for someone like this for years, and the choice of that name told him that the moment might finally be arriving, that a pope formed by the order that had carried the secret, the Holy Spirit's feminine incarnation, for 5 centuries, was now in a position to do something with what he knew, to open a door that had been locked since the Council of Nicaea, to acknowledge, in the language of official church teaching, what the inner order had always understood in private. What happened instead was not an opening, it was a closing. And to understand what that closing looked like and what it means, we need to follow the thread of the Holy Spirit's presence into the 20th century, into the life of a Russian mystic named Helena Rourke, who received a sacred stone in Paris in 1923, and whom the Jesuits watched from that moment until the end of her life. Because the surveillance of Helena Rourke tells us exactly how the inner order responds when the Holy Spirit incarnate makes herself known in the world. And that pattern is still operating today.